and welcome to another IELTS Learning Tips video. Bernie Wall here, and if you haven't met me before, I'm an IELTS trainer specialising in Band 7 and 8. And in this video today, I want to talk a little bit about writing and about a process that will get you from typically Band 5.56 to Band 7, 7.58 in 6 very clear steps. So before we start, I just wanted to tell you about my new Facebook group, which is IELTS Band 7 and 8 tips and strategies. And there is a link at the end of this video and at the bottom of the page or underneath the video. And I would love it if you join me in my Facebook group. I do post every day a little tip or a little piece of advice in that group, and we've done 1 or 2 live videos, and I plan to do more of those, so I would love to see you there. And the other way you can contact with me is to join my my list on my email on my website, which is IELTSlearningtips.com, and again there's a link here for you to do that. And as well as getting emails and information about what's going on in my IELTS, you'll also have access to some free resources on there to help you with your exam. So let's get back to the writing. And today, as I say, I want to share with you a process. And this process is something that I have observed with all of my students that I've worked with who are looking for Band 7 and Band 7.5 and 8. And I've observed the process that we go through to get them to that point. And so I've developed a series of steps that will get you there. So as we go through, it might be useful for you if you identified where you think you are on this scale, and then you can then think about what you must do to get to the next level. So I've got a little slideshow that I'm going to share with you, which I'll put up there now, and then we'll go through the process. So typically I'm starting at Band 6, Band 5.56. I don't often have students at this band. The vast majority of students I get are at 6.5 already, but occasionally I have students who are only getting 5.5 and 6, yet they need 7 or 7.5. So I'm thinking about where they start. And if you are at Band 5.5 or 6, then you need to sort of start at the beginning of this. And it is a step-by-step process. So here are the steps. So at this level, say Band 5.56, you'll be looking simply at improving your sentences. So these will be quite simple sentences to start out with, and making sure that your sentences are well written and correct. You can also look at introducing some new vocabulary and checking grammar, and looking perhaps at introducing 1 or 2 grammatical things that will help you improve it. Step 2, it's vital that you start integrating planning and correction into your writing. So this needs to be built into the timing, and also you need to think about how to plan your essay so that it meets all the criteria for the band that you're looking for. And of course, correction stops you sending silly mistakes to the examiner. Okay, so once you've got your planning in, then we can start looking at combining. Now, you will do some combining of sentences in step 1, but probably with fairly simple linkers like and, but, therefore, maybe. Now in step 3, you can think about more sophisticated ones, adding in maybe furthermore, or nonetheless, nevertheless, these kinds of things. You also need to think about your cohesion, to think about the relationships with your sentences. And this should follow on from the planning, because if you plan well, you'll be planning not only your main idea, but also the evidence that you're going to put in to support it. And this is where these linking words come in, so that you can relate all of these ideas together using linking words and other devices. And you should be thinking about vocabulary now as well, and avoiding repetition by having more synonyms for the words you want to use. Okay, once all that's in place, now we can really start thinking about more complex sentences. And there are lots of devices such as conditional sentences that will allow you to do this. Also important here is to start using some noun phrases rather than verb phrases, because this is more academic and it's also more formal and it makes for good writing. So this is another area that you can start to develop at this point. So now I'm guessing you'd be around 6.5, between 6.5 and 7, and the complex sentences and noun phrases will help you get up to that band 7 level. Now you need to start developing your writing more, and you need to start recycling. So that means using anything that you've used in a previous task that was 100% correct. You need to keep using those kinds of devices, those kinds of sentence structures, so that you're not starting from scratch every time you write a task. And you should also be developing some checklists of your errors, the errors that you often make, and you'll know what they are, and they're typically articles, prepositions, these kinds of things. But you should have in your brain a list of the things that you often make mistakes with, so that you can check them as you write and at the end. And then finally, we just keep practicing until the day of your exam. Okay, so I want to just go through these in a little bit more detail. So here we are with step 1. So as I mentioned before, focus on sentence structure. When I work with band 5.56 students on those fairly rare occasions, I must say, but when I do, the first thing I do is to get them just to write simple sentences, absolutely 100%. So we look at the topic, we discuss the topic, and we just write maybe 6 sentences about the topic or about their opinion on the topic. And then once we've got those 6 sentences absolutely correct, then we can start organizing them so that they match with each other. And then we can start combining them together with some simple linking words, and, but, therefore. And then once you're able to do that, then there's the beginnings of a good solid paragraph. Okay, you can start learning new words here. So if you're at band 5.56, then this is what you should be doing. You should be writing completely correct sentences, combining them with simple linking words so that they can then form a paragraph, and think about your vocabulary so you've got new words coming in all the time. And also think about grammar and structure. So you might be working on some new structures that you can use. Maybe you're working a little bit on a conditional, or maybe you're working on some passive voice a little bit, but just start to introduce some of that grammar that you're going to need at band 7. Okay, once you can do all of that, then you start thinking about your plan. So let's look at the question, analyze it. What does it want me to do? What is the premise? Is it an argument? Is it an opinion? Is it a discussion? What kind of ideas have I got around it? And how can I organize those ideas into a step-by-step plan for each paragraph? Okay, always use the plan if it's good. Because if it's a good plan, it's going to save you time and it's going to help you to do your writing more efficiently and more correctly. If it doesn't work, it's probably because the plan isn't good. So then you need to go back and look at the planning again. Okay, focus on removing errors. So this could be grammar, this could be punctuation, this could be spelling, it could be word order. There are lots of different errors. And you need firstly to know the ones that you make frequently or more than once, and you can check these as you write. So if you have a problem with, let's say, present perfect tense and you want to use it, think about it as you write it. Have I got it right? And also that should form part of your checking in the last 2-3 minutes that you have at the end before you hand in your script. And I would practice these things when you're doing your IELTS study. So when you do your IELTS study, always plan your task and always check it at the end. So allow some time for that. Okay, and then you start to develop a good balanced structure. So the right word count, remember, the more you write, the more chance there is of making mistakes. So stick to the word count. So for task 2, we're looking at 260, 280, that sort of level. You'd have about 3 sentences in your introduction. You don't need any more than that, and 2 or 3 maximum in your conclusion. And then the rest of the words are balanced between paragraph 1 and 2, or if you like to do 3 paragraphs, between 3 paragraphs. It doesn't really matter, so long as it's all balanced. And it should look balanced when you look at it. And allow, as I said before, some time for your planning and checking in your writing time. So that 40 minutes needs to include not only your planning stage for a few minutes, but also 2-3 minutes of checking at the end. Okay. So let's move on. So now we're at step 2. All this is going well, so we can move on. So now we need more sophisticated linking words. So probably things like furthermore, nonetheless, nevertheless, these kinds of things. So have a really good range of linking words. Start to expand your vocabulary even more, so find more synonyms, find vocabulary for the different topics so that you've got a good range there, and look at collocation, because collocation is also something that can go wrong in the writing. So think about collocation. This can often be related to the topic vocabulary. So you should find the different collocations when you work on that vocabulary. One way of improving your vocabulary is by avoiding simple everyday verbs. So things like have, get, can. There are always better verbs to use. So it's an easy way to get started on this. And then if this is all going well and everything's in place, then you can move on to step 4. So now we need to introduce more complex sentences. We've had compound sentences, we've had sentences with different sorts of linking words, but now we need proper complex sentences, and the easiest way to start with that is to use devices. So I mentioned before conditionals. There are also devices such as not only but also, as for comparisons, and there are other devices. And if you look back, I think it was two months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I did a video on different ways of making complex sentences. I think there were 6 different ways. And if you learn those, that should be enough for your task 2. Okay, another thing you should be looking at is the use of noun phrases instead of verb phrases. They're more academic sounding and more formal. So investigate that and start using those and putting them into your writing. And finally, you need to keep developing your grammar. So you should be using passive voice. It's formal objective, which is what you need for the writing. You need to also think about using more gerunds and present participles. These also help with the academic tone of the writing and for general training with a more formal tone of the writing. So keep looking at the kind of grammar that you need to get band 7 and above and practice it at this stage. So we should have really good solid writing by now, and we're almost at the exam stage. So what can we do next? First of all, just keep developing it, finding new ideas, new phrases, new vocabulary. And you can get a lot of this from good IELTS models. So for example, the ones that are written by examiners in the Cambridge books would be good examples of this. So just pick out words, phrases, even a whole sentence structure that you like, and then adapt it to your own writing. I've had lots of students who've read through these and said, oh, I really want to use that in my writing. And the best way of doing it is to try it out. And sometimes it works. With some students, they tried things out and they didn't work. And then in the end, I would say, look, just don't use it, because if it goes wrong, it's going to cost you. So just try things out and use the ones that work for you. Recycle, this is really important. So any of these sentence types or phrases or vocabulary which work well, which are completely correct, you haven't made any mistakes, so they give you an error-free sentence, you should use again. And by recycling and reusing and not reinventing the wheel every time you write a task, it means that when you get to the exam, you are going to already have half of your task almost written, because you'll have this bank of words, phrases, sentence structures, devices that you know you can use without any mistakes to express your ideas. So keep recycling, keep reusing the same things. As a teacher, I often see the same essay, you know, with different topics many times structurally. But that doesn't matter, because as an examiner, they only see it that once in your exam. Okay, and now create this mental checklist of the mistakes you keep making, so that you can check it as you write, and you can also check them at the end. So all of the things that make you go, oh no, I can't believe I did that, those are the mistakes you need to check first of all. So now we're pretty much ready for the exam, and I would say ideally you should be about 2-3 weeks away. So now you just have to keep practicing. Don't change anything. Keep to the plan, keep to the bank of vocabulary and language that you've got. Don't start. Sometimes at this stage, a lot of students kind of throw everything in the air and start doing silly things and different things, and it's a disaster, because at this point you should be ready and you just need to practice. Stop researching. You're only able to use what's in your head in the exam. So this is the point, say 2-3 weeks out, you should stop researching and you should just start practicing using everything that's in your head and nothing from outside, exactly as it would be in the exam. And you should also now try and time yourself. It's not so important to time yourself in the early steps, because you're still developing your style and your language and everything else. But now at this stage, you should be timing yourself and sticking to the times and remembering to add in the planning time and the checking time. And there you are. You should now be ready for band 7, 7.5 or 8. Whichever it is that you're going for and from wherever you started, and you should be able to book your exam with confidence. And here are the 2 things I mentioned before. So my Facebook group, IELTS Band 7 and 8 Tips and Strategies, and IELTSlearningtips.com for the free resources. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that that was useful. This is a proven process. It's the process that I know many students have followed, perhaps unconsciously, to be honest, and they have gone into the exam and got 7, 7.5, and in some cases 8. And even I know people who've got 9, although they were native speakers. So look at where you are on the process, which step are you at, and then make sure you can do everything in that step and then move on to the next step. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.